Hello. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview of Western juniper wood as my material to present. So my name is James Vaughn, and I don't have a webcam, so I can't really show you my face, but I'll attach a picture of my discussion post so you can connect a face to the information you're getting. Without further ado, here's a little bit about it. So it was harvested. It can be harvested from western juniper trees, which grow in the arid climates of the western United States, primarily in like Oregon, Nevada, California, and Idaho. Other species of juniper exist out there, but the primary sources for used as a building material is western juniper. Um, Juniper is uniquely harder and denser than most other woods. Well, not most other, but many other woods. But it has low stiffness properties, which cause it to bend easily under load. Um, it's beautiful once it's finished and stained, and you can see that in this picture I've attached with a little juniper wood bowl. It's kind of pretty. But due to these properties, it's often used for structures that require wood that can be bent easily or used for more decorative purposes, kind of like siding on a house or like art or cabinetry, that kind of stuff. However, it's rarely used for load bearing purposes, so you're not going to see a lot of wood studs for walls or anything built out of it. It's mainly for decoration and things like that. But it can be used for load bearing purposes. It's just not as viable. Um, and so for perspective on how much juniper wood is used, there's about 4 million board feet of western juniper produced annually. Um, and for Douglas fir, there's about 11 billion board feet produced annually. So it's not very widely used for building material, but it is, and it can be good. So on the basis of a life cycle analysis, the cost of harvesting juniper is significantly larger than other woods, approximately twice as much. This is usually because the limbs that grow on the juniper tree are pretty thick and really twisted and difficult to cut with like automated machines. So you have to get in there with a chainsaw and kind of saw off the limbs to get it to um, make them useful. And then juniper grows on really dry, rocky terrain. And so getting vehicles in and out and transporting it off site can be very expensive and produce a lot of CO2. Um, and then juniper is often difficult to mill with current technology just because of how hard it is and dense and twisty the wood can be. Um, so the financial burden of harvesting it and manufacturing it and the CO2 emissions that come from transporting it often detract from its commercial use. But it is used, it's just not very widely used. Um, and then another thing to think about here too is that juniper is an invasive species to many ecosystems, especially in like eastern Oregon, which can be very destructive to them. And so people, a lot of farmers and people in cities in those areas often pay to have it removed or even burn it to get rid of it quickly. However, sometimes people burn it illegally, which can cause issues, especially for the ecosystem it's growing in. So with that, let's you have to ask like, is juniper wood considered green? And I would say that invasive western juniper is considered green as a building material because removing the tree offers protection from the region it's growing into and prevents human-caused wildfires meant for tree clearing. You can see in some of the pictures here on the right side of the screen that as over the last 2 decades, juniper trees have really grown into a lot of areas. The top picture here is in the John Day area of Oregon. And then Oregon's introduced some bills to try to remove some of them to protect the groundwater and the species that live in those areas. So it can be really beneficial to remove it, and then once it's removed, having a use for it, often for construction, can be very green and very good. But the flip side to that is that native juniper removal. So if it's native to that ecosystem and it's clear cut, then that would not be considered very green, because you're creating a lot of CO2 emissions to go out and harvest it in those dry, rocky regions and transport it and then eventually get it manufactured. And you're also hurting the ecosystem that it's in. So it would not be very green to clear cut those juniper forests if those juniper trees were meant to be there. Um, but and researchers are still pretty actively studying and weighing the cost of whether or not this is a green material to use, mainly because of that um, debate of if the CO2 emissions created by harvesting it are worth the protection of the ecosystem that they're in. Generally, it goes to what I said before, like if it's invasive and it's harvested and used for a construction resource, generally it's a green material. Otherwise, maybe not so much. And so I wonder, how a long-term life cycle analysis and an ecological study might kind of back up some of those thoughts and confirm how green of a material juniper trees really are. In most cases, it's interesting because deforestation and harvesting wood, um, even though it's renewable, can be detrimental to the environment that it grows in, especially if you're cutting down a lot of trees all at once. But this isn't always the case for juniper, because if it's invading into a region that it's not supposed to be in, and you clear cut it, that could actually help the ecosystem it's invading. Um, with that, I just want to give you a couple sources that I grabbed my information from. So the top one here is for that first image of the tree on the first slide. Next one here is some facts about juniper wood, given by research at Oregon State. The next one here is for that bowl, the picture of the wood bowl that I put on the slide. The next one here is for um, some more information about how widely used juniper wood is, and this last one is for some more images and information about it. So thank you very much for listening.